I genuinely did not see this coming. I have to be honest, I am still physically shaking from what we just witnessed on our screens. The moment I saw Britt Westbourne holding that vial of medicine, I knew something felt entirely wrong, but nothing could have prepared me for the sheer unadulterated horror of that scene. I wasn't ready for that. None of us were ready for that. We have seen a lot of intense, heart-stopping moments on this show over the years, but watching Britt inject what she wholeheartedly believed was her life-saving medication, only to instantly spiral into a violent, terrifying medical emergency, that changed everything. My jaw actually dropped, and I found myself screaming at the television in pure panic. The visual execution of that moment was just too much to handle. Seeing her body suddenly contort, the violent spasms taking over her entirely, and then the foaming at the mouth before she just collapsed into absolute unconsciousness. It was brutal. It was raw, it was visceral, and it was deeply, deeply disturbing to watch. You could feel the panic radiating through the screen, suffocating everyone in the room. I keep thinking about the sheer cruelty of it all. This wasn't just a random attack. This was an intimate, devastating violation of her trust, her body, and her hope for the future. She thought she was fighting her disease. She thought she was doing the right thing for her survival. And then the camera slowly pans to Cassius Phazon. Oh my God, Cassius. The absolute dead silence in the room as the realization washed over him was deafening. I genuinely wasn't expecting that level of raw, unfiltered acting. You could literally see the gears turning in his head, the sheer panic giving way to a sickening, paralyzing realization that shattered his entire world. He stood there, completely frozen, as the puzzle pieces connected in real time right before our eyes. He realized that the vials he had so carefully handled, the medicine he had personally ensured was sent to her, were not medicine at all. This is exactly why this hit so hard for me, and I know it hit hard for all of you too. If you look back at Britt's entire journey, her terrifying battle with Huntington's disease has been the emotional core of her character for so long. We have cried with her, we have rooted for her, and we have watched her try to navigate this terrifying terminal diagnosis with whatever dignity and strength she could muster. To take that ultimate vulnerability, her desperate clinging need for a treatment, and weaponize it against her in such a grotesque way, it is genuinely sickening. It shatters every single expectation we had for her recovery arc and plunges us straight into a nightmare. But what makes this a true masterclass in psychological horror is the realization of what Ross Cullum actually did behind the scenes. Cullum didn't just swap the vials with poison to kill Britt. No, that would be far too simple and far too boring for a mastermind of his caliber. He deliberately orchestrated this entire scenario so that Cassius would be the one to deliver the fatal dose. He turned Cassius into the murder weapon. Let that sink in for a moment. He wanted Britt dead, yes, but he wanted Cassius to take the fall for it, framing him as the unwitting, tragic executioner in a play he didn't even know he was starring in. When Cassius finally pieced it all together, you could see his very soul leave his body. The crushing guilt that washed over his face was agonizing to witness. He is the one who provided those vials. If Britt dies on that cold floor, her blood is entirely on his hands, at least in the eyes of the law and, more importantly, in his own tortured conscience. The sheer weight of that realization is enough to break any man's sanity. But Cassius didn't just break, he ignited. The sorrow vanished, replaced by something much darker. I love this storyline because the stakes have literally never been higher, and the villainy is just so incredibly sharp and precise. Cullum is proving to be one of the most diabolical, cold-blooded antagonists we've had on General Hospital in years. The intricate planning, the anticipation of his enemies' moves, the sheer sociopathy of it all, it makes for incredibly compelling television. I can't help feeling that the writers have really outdone themselves in crafting a villain who is always 5 steps ahead of everyone else, playing chess while the rest of Port Charles is playing checkers. But something still bothers me, guys. I have to admit, I am so incredibly frustrated with how Britt is constantly used as a pawn in these massive overarching plots. Why does she always have to be the sacrificial lamb? Why must her trauma her illness, and her body be the catalyst for the men around her to take action. It breaks my heart to see her lying there, fighting for her life, completely unaware of the massive, deadly conspiracy swirling around her. She deserves so much better than to be collateral damage in Ross Cullum's twisted, sadistic games. And let's talk about Cassius's reaction, because it was explosive. I completely understand why he is seeing red right now. I understand why the crushing, suffocating guilt instantly morphed into an explosive, uncontrollable rage. The man was played like a cheap fiddle. He was used as a literal tool for murder. Anyone in his position, with a shred of humanity left, would want to hunt Cullum down and tear him limb from limb. The desire for vengeance is completely 100% justified. He wants to make Cullum pay in blood for what he did to Britt and for the psychological torture he just inflicted on him. But I still think that giving into this blind, unhinged rage is a massive mistake. Maybe I'm being unfair, but Cassius is not thinking clearly at all. He is operating on pure adrenaline, fury, and guilt, and that makes him incredibly dangerous, but also incredibly vulnerable to manipulation. He is charging headfirst into a battle against a man who is cold, calculating, and seemingly omniscient. Cullum is not going to be caught off guard by a screaming, angry Cassius kicking down his door. In fact, Cullum is actively counting on it. This is where my anxiety is absolutely peaking, guys. We know Cullum. We know how his sick, twisted mind works. He fully anticipated that Cassius would figure out the truth of the swapped vials. He knew that the moment Britt collapsed, Cassius would trace the poison back to him and come looking for bloody retribution. And what did Cullum do? He prepared a sickening backup plan. The revelation that Cullum is just sitting there, waiting in the shadows, with another syringe full of lethal poison hidden away. My stomach is in absolute knots. It is the ultimate, inescapable, deadly trap. Cullum is literally baiting Cassius into his own demise. He wants Cassius to lose his mind, to abandon all strategy, and to rush at him in a fit of vengeful, blinding fury. Because the second Cassius lunges forward to attack, Cullum is going to plunge that backup syringe straight into his chest, turning him into the second victim of the night. This brings me to the absolute fan conflict that is tearing me apart inside right now. Part of me so desperately wants to believe that Cassius can somehow outsmart Cullum. I want him to burst through that door, dodge the trap, and deliver the epic, satisfying beatdown that Cullum so richly deserves. I want Cassius to be the dark hero, to avenge Britt's suffering, and to finally put an end to this reign of terror once and for all. I want to see Cullum's smug face drop when he realizes he's been beaten. Another part of me, the logical part, thinks he is walking straight into his own grave. I am terrified that Cassius's rage has completely blinded him to the obvious trap that has been laid out for him. If he attacks Cullum blindly, he is going to get stabbed with that poison. And then what? Then both he and Britt are dying, and Cullum wins everything. Cullum walks away completely clean, leaving two tragic bodies behind and a perfectly framed narrative that absolves him of all guilt. The suspense of this impending confrontation is agonizing. I honestly can't decide what I want to happen next. Do I want Cassius to stop, take a deep breath, and call for emergency medical help for Britt first? Yes, logically, that is the only right answer. Save the girl. But emotionally, I want him to make Cullum suffer unimaginable pain. But knowing about that hidden poison syringe just changes the entire dynamic of the scene. It turns a righteous revenge mission into a foolish, heartbreaking suicide mission, and I am not ready to lose Cassius like this. This entire situation is a tragic, beautiful, chaotic mess of storytelling. Britt is hovering in the terrifying space between life and death because of a fake, poisoned cure. Cassius is about to throw his own life away in a doomed, desperate quest for vengeance. And Ross Cullum is just sitting back, pulling the strings like a demonic puppet master, watching his masterpiece unfold. It is peak soap opera drama, and I am here for every single agonizing second of it, even as it completely destroys my nerves. Am I the only one feeling this way? Seriously, guys, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think Cassius is going to realize it's a trap before it's too late? Or is he going to take the bait and end up getting injected with that second syringe? And what about Britt? Is there any coming back from a seizure that violent and that sudden? Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like we are about to lose someone major, and the fallout is going to change Port Charles forever. The stakes have never felt this real, and the danger has never felt this imminent. I need to know your thoughts, your wildest theories, and your predictions. Drop everything in the comments below because I am going to be obsessing over this nonstop until the next episode drops.
Goodbye. Please like, subscribe, and comment on the GH Spoilers Daily channel.